Primary obstruction, ourselves. Primary way beyond the obstruction is examining our lives, applying our thoughts. Now, 95% of our thoughts are a repeat from yesterday. What do we have left available to address 95% of our thoughts? 5%. About 5% of your daily thoughts, if intentionally leveraged, can improve the 95% of automatic thoughts. Okay? If 95% of our thoughts are repeat yet from yesterday, you're not necessarily going to stop that. I mean, you could improve some disciplines in meditation, but we're already kind of wired that way. We are creatures of habit, and habit is incredibly powerful for good or for bad. And that stands to reason. The habits that serve you are the things that, look, if you had to think about every tooth you brushed in the morning, right? If you want to do an experiment tomorrow morning, if you're right-handed, brush your teeth with your left hand. When you go to put your pants on, start with your other leg first. You do enough of that in the morning, you'll go back to bed and start over again. It's very distracting, right? But we have habits in our lives. We can get completely dressed, cleaned up, showered, and be thinking about something entirely different while we do that. Because we've worked that into habits and discipline, and it's not burning up a lot of energy. Very efficient, very powerful. In fact, anything that you want to accomplish, really meaningfully, try to work it into a disciplined process. Work it into an existing routine. It's the repetition that develops. It's not the one time that you go to the gym. It's the regular visits to the gym. And that really comes down to structure and time management.
Steve, to your point, if you have right rotator surgery, you're right-handed, you actually have to do everything with your left hand for about 2...
Did you have that happen to you?
Yeah, both shoulders. So this non-issue right-handed, but so now if it's 6 months rehab PT, after 3 months of doing everything left-handed, everything, you become pretty proficient in the first week or
so
two.
let's talk, thank you for that. So let's go back to this idea of how long it takes to develop a habit. I can imagine in the early, you probably had to give yourself an extra hour in the morning or 2 hours because you're completely out of whack.
Yep.
But in time,
Yep.
So we'll use that example. Whatever you want to accomplish, it's not too late, right? Always make your future bigger than your past. Consider some of the things I'm going to share with you as possibly being integrated into your life. So I'm going to give you 5 specific keys for unlocking more potential in your life. 5 specific keys. We're going to take that 5% of conscious thought to address the 95% of unconscious thought. What did Einstein say? Albert Einstein said we can't solve our problems with the same thinking that created them. So we're going to jog it a bit. The mind likes to create a bit of a box. It feels safe in this sort of these box of ideas, but our abundant future, a much more abundant future, is outside of that box. So I'm going to be messing a little bit with your preconceptions and the way you think. So let's start number 1 key. Number 1 key, I'm going to give you 5 keys in our time together. The first key is this. Now, before I actually tell you what it is, I want to share this story with you. I was speaking in Lansing, Michigan just last week. And this advisor came up to me after my presentation and he said to me, I want to share with you something that my mother always used to say to me. Now, the more I think about that, don't we usually lean in when somebody says, this is what my father always said, this is what my mother always said? What is that? That's what's called a presupposition. It's a touchstone. Each and every one of you have specific sayings. Either you got it from a parent or you read it somewhere, but it's something you lean into on a regular basis. It's your touchstone. One of mine, personal ones for my mother, was our strengths are also our weaknesses. I lean in that a lot whenever my weaknesses present themselves, right? Because we have a tendency to overjudge the weakness, but our strengths have weaknesses. It's a two-sided coin. And what she did for me was remind me that there's a strength on the other side. There's a strength on the other side that I should acknowledge and be aware of. And it really has served me. She also said the reverse is true. Our weaknesses can be our strengths. Now you're like, wow, that one you really got to think about. But nonetheless, that's a touchstone for me. So this advisor comes up to me, and he says, my mother was a librarian. She's since passed, but she always used to say to me this. So this is key number 1. Don't be afraid to learn. Don't be afraid to learn. Ladies and gentlemen, this key right here is bigger than, it is huge. Because it begs the other question, so let's dig into it. Why would we be afraid to learn? Why would we be afraid to learn? I believe that one of the reasons we're afraid to learn is that we think things now that are not true. And learning may expose the fact that we're wrong. If you believe something that's not true and you find out through learning that it's wrong, then are you wrong? And this is an important thing, because what I want to do is I want to separate this experience of knowledge and insight, what your mind is thinking, because really you're not the enemy, right? Pogo said we've identified the enemy and it's us. It's actually not you, it's your mind. Now, one of the first things that one of my own therapists, and I'll tell you a little bit about therapy in general. So I got married at age 35. My wife's about 6 years younger. And in the early days of our marriage, we were really struggling. You know, we both brought in our fears and anxieties. Now, if my wife had said to me, you need therapy, how do you think I would respond to that? Right? Especially considering my background, because I was afraid of not, my parents divorced when I was young, and I was estranged from my dad for over 30 years, and I was already dealing with this worthiness issue and not being good enough. And so I was just, most overachievers, ladies and gentlemen, aren't running to something, they're running from something. And I think that's one of the reasons I didn't get married until I was 35. You know, I was just trying to get perfect enough before I made the leap, so to speak. And the moment she's not happy with something I did, I mean, I would take it, it would be scary for me, be scary. So if she said, you need therapy, I mean, that would be fairly devastating. But she did something that great leaders do. Let me give you 3 words for a leader. Powerful and simple, if you think about it. Leaders go first. Leaders go first. She went first. We were having trouble. She went and got a therapist. She started seeing somebody. So when she came around and asked me to see somebody, well, initially I felt the same way. Like, what do you know? And then I was like, wait a minute. One night I remember where I was sitting in my office alone. I was like, wait a minute. She's not asking me to do anything she hasn't already done herself. And that dawned on me. And then I went to see somebody. I went to see a professional. Now, why are we afraid? Why are people afraid to see a professional? Because we might learn something about ourselves we don't want to see, that we don't want to look at. That's the real truth. That's why we enjoy making fun of them. And making fun of people who go to them. I mean, some people do, right? But that person's like, wait a minute. And then I started saying, wait a minute, I read psychology books. I talk about psychology. I'm fascinated with psychology. Why am I afraid to see a psychologist? But ladies and gentlemen, if we don't face what's in our face, it'll stay in our face, and it'll obscure our possibilities. You can't see the picture when you're in the frame. I love that one. That's another touchstone for me. You can't see the picture when you're in the frame. We are made together, we're better, because we have people, and you know those ones that really, that can speak the tough truth to you, right? If somebody just agrees with you all the time, you're like, yeah, that's nice. But I'd like somebody to really challenge me, lovingly, right? Challenge me. Say, you know what, I hear what you're saying, but is that really who you are, you know? Those are your real friends in your life, and you know that. So why are we afraid to learn? I think because learning requires the death of something we knew previously. So one of my favorite scenes in movie history, for those of you who've seen me present before. I may have shared this with you. It comes from a movie. The moment I share the name of this movie, the title of this movie, you're going to know the scene. It's a very famous scene. And the movie is A Few Good Men. And there's a scene in this movie with Jack Nicholson, and all of you are nodding. Most of you know exactly what I'm talking about. Look, I don't even remember what the movie was about. I think a lot of people forgot what it was, but they remember this scene. And I heard just a few months ago that it was improv. That this particular scene was improv, which makes sense. Jack Nicholson, one of the greatest actors ever. He's in full character. The young Tom Cruise is saying, he's trying to fire him up, and it works. And we want the truth, we want the truth. All right, so let's have some fun. Yeah. We all just want to say it too, right? I'll start it, you finish it. You ready? So Tom's badgering, and Jack says this: "You want the truth? You can't handle the truth." Of course, there's your Dan Sullivan in the back. All right. Why? The power of why. I'm telling you the why question. So let me give you this from Tony Robbins. Heard this just recently. I used to say, I've said this for years, the quality of our life depends upon the quality of our thoughts. You may have heard me say that. You have limiting thoughts, you have a limiting life. You have outstanding thoughts, you'll have an outstanding life. It depends on the quality of your thoughts. This is why I carry this coin in my pocket every day, to elevate my thoughts. And I believe, Joel, you've already passed this coin out. This is one of the most valuable, maybe the most valuable material possessions I own. Not for the material which it's made, but for the thoughts that it produces. Why do my clients need me? And you can just replace clients. Why does my wife need me? Why do my children need me? Why do my friends need me? And if you think your primary value is what you do, you've just limited your potential. Your primary value is who you are, who you are being, what you're thinking. The people who trust their futures with you trust you. Not because all the stuff you know. What you know matters. What you do matters. But why you do what you do matters the most. So I came across this quote recently for Tony Robbins, a little twist on this, and I think it's more powerful. I think it's better. I think it's a better quote. He says the quality of our life depends on the quality of our questions. What precedes thought? I say the quality of our life depends on the quality of our thoughts. That stands to reason. But now he's saying, wait a minute, the quality of our life depends on the quality of our questions, because our questions drive our life, our thoughts. If all your questions are what and how, what to do and how to do it, what to get and how to get it, what to sell and how to sell it, instead of why do I even want it? The why question is so incredibly powerful. So it's not so much just don't be afraid to learn. Why are we afraid to learn? And I'm telling you right now, the fact that we're afraid to learn currently in our country, I can't even believe that we're even having to defend free speech. Why would somebody want you to shut up? Why would somebody want you not to talk? It's because they're afraid to learn. They're afraid that what you say goes against what they believe, and that's uncomfortable. Literally saying that if you say something I don't believe, that's violent. Violence is physical. It may, by the way, you want the truth? You want the truth? You can't handle the truth. Why? Why can't you handle the truth? Because the truth can end your life as you know it. If you signed up with a big group of people, and that's your identity, and the group is wrong, where are you at? What do you have to fall back on? We have got to protect discourse. All of us have to be able to enter into a conversation where we disagree with another person and not be so offended with it. Not be so offended. Because guess what? I've shared this with years with my colleagues. If I call on a financial professional, I say, what do you have to lose? You have everything to gain and nothing to lose. If I disagree with you, one of two things are going to happen. You're either going to strengthen your conviction through the conversation, or you're going to change your mind and become better for it. Think about that. There's only two things going to happen in a conversation. You're either going to strengthen your conviction from the debate, or you're going to change your mind and become freer as a result. What do we know about the truth? The truth will what?
Set you free.
There is nothing to be afraid of. The only thing you can be afraid of is that what you think is wrong, or not. Put it this way, is less true or not true. Not that it's so much wrong. Right or wrong, I know, can be debated. I remember there's a teacher from the 60s, you know, Pablo Coelho. It's got a strange pronunciation of his name. He said, we're all on a path. We're all on a path. The question is, does it have a heart?